Hi, Jolanta.
I don't see Francesca and Silvia. Probably they're coming. Piotr.
Yeah. There's any poll?
Piotr from Lublin.
Oh.
Eccoli.
Very good team.
What is name for Piotr?
Piotr.
But his name is Piotr what? Full name?
Piotr,
And
you have to turn on the microphone, otherwise it's not useful. Oh, ecco la picchia.
Intanto fai Peti anche la registrazione su un'osta di Zoom, va bene?
Sì, sì, va.
Sì, io ho fatto partire anche il live.
Ok, vabbè. Il giro di salute iniziale è di rito, insomma. Io quando volete si parte, non è che...
Ci siamo tutti?
Più o meno, sì, penserei. So, welcome to everybody. Thank you for answering at this call. This is a Resiliart debate organized in the framework of the Mondiacult 2022 and prepared basically by the DAda laboratory of the University of Pavia. The concept of this event is concerning the digital documentation as a process of rewriting culture, and it's thinking to collect some intervention from a researcher that work in the University of Pavia in the field of digital content, something that is very actual, especially if we consider the relevant and the impact of such product has nowadays in the life. I mean, in all the different aspects, especially after these 2 years of closing, and that has changed or increased a lot our way to have a relation each other, relation to the space, to the digital content, the city, and the different approach to the cultural heritage at all. So something that in the field of research we are talking from many years, but probably is nice to share with you today this confrontation and this roundtable that it's focused on 5 intervention, which I remember to the colleagues that they have approximately 10-12 minutes each to present their research and officially to answer a specific question that are presented in the call, and at the end we will open a round table made by consideration, question, and so between us. I see that there are many colleagues and friends from different countries: Russia, Ukraine, Poland, of course, Italy, and Bethlehem. I see, Gigi, sorry, I was just trying to have the map of all here. So we will start with the first question, that is, which is the identity of the digital collective space today, and how is it reflected in the real space? Also, how is the process of digitalizing artistic and cultural expression determining the virtual proposal for the human experience narration, and how are digital products influencing artistic production in the architectural field? And to answer, let me introduce Professor Massimiliano Savorra, Associate Professor at DICAR, Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture of the University of Pavia. His PhD in History of Architecture and Urban Planning at the UAV, University of Venice, and postdoctoral scholarship at the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Padua. He participated in numerous conferences and lectures in Italy and foreign university, and he achieved fellowship and grants in Italy and abroad, and conducts studies in French, Canada, and United States. He also curated exhibition and conference in various Italian cities, and he published numerous monographic volumes in prestigious editorial series and articles in important specialized magazines. In recent years, he has been dealing with the history of architectural ideas applied to cultural heritage and the visual history of virtual world. So please, Massimiliano, I think that you can share the screen if you want to use the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So we see your screen, and not anymore.
Just a moment. You can see?
Yes, now yes. So
okay.
Floor is yours, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandro, for the presentation. Thank you for the question that we read now. But I would like to add another question to the previous one that I believe can be relevant beyond my research field, that the history of architecture. What kind of relationship interaction can cultural heritage have with digital space today, where cultural heritage is intended as a set of historical, artistic, and architectural heritage. Recently, many researchers and careful critics try to answer the question. A few years ago, in 1995, William Mitchell in City of Beats described the immaterial condition of cultural heritage. According to Mitchell, the declining importance of physical heritage is leading to a vertiginous increase in the possibilities of access to a multiplicity of knowledge tools. Let's notice that more than 20 years have passed. Today, the windows onto the world of material communication drove the landscape of a global network which overlaps with the physical landscape of objects. A distanced reading replaces the consumption of books, the study of documents, the contemplation of works of art, the visualization of an architecture designed or only imagined. Direct vision gives access to mediated vision. We can therefore discuss the implications of this radical change. From the cult of the document, we pass to the cult of the image to consume. These kinds of consumption seems to lead to addiction. It's clear that we should not be apocalyptic a priori. Quoting Sergio Solmi, when crazy explorations of future worlds, a chain explosion of fantastic discharge between the ingenious and the childish influence the lives of human beings. It means that we are facing a state of crisis. The author, in his Divagazione on science fiction, explained these symptoms as of the individual's unsuitability to the terms to the destiny of society, to their determinate historical configuration and their ordinary waves of development. More than 70 years later, the writer's observation can still serve as a warning to use the fantastic as something else. I am convinced that it became urgent to investigate the limits and the conditions of an application of immaterial communication, not only for the creation of entertainment for the people, but also for the organization and management of those stratified databases of the past, which are beside libraries, also documentary archives and archives of artists and architects. In the early 20s, a number of thinking network studies raised the questions about the role of the digitization of the existing. At the time, the questions were related to the danger of the proliferation of ways of creating images and information, together with different ways of cataloging would lead to a bubble of communication. That bubble has become a reality, but not only because there are so many different languages, but rather because the disorder of communication is fed by the most diverse images, which are increasingly becoming a necessity. The need for images has become even greater in recent years when creative human beings, not only artists and architects, but all those capable of producing images, have made and continue to make a representation a unique communication device. Speech and critical thinking have been hopelessly reduced to the image. I use the term reduction in accordance with its Latin etymological root of reducere, to bring back. I remember that architecture, also considered as imago, was placed side by side with the mass media, meaning with the instrument of information that conditioned behavior and characterized urban civilization. The question of the gap between poverty and the opulence, between politics and culture, between profession and university, between architecture and society, and between image and substance of things, seems to resurface more than half a century later. Now, those age-old questions are joined by those of representational referentiality, the mutation of the means of presentation, reproduction, and diffusion of images have consequences comparable to those that René Berger feared for all artistic expression due to the non-existence of artistic object. Today, we get lost in the images. Today, I believe that this reflection should be reread and framed, bearing in mind the most interesting aspect linked to the current use of the materialization of intervention of the architectural heritage as an act of reduction. Among the many examples, it should be mentioned that virtual immersive environments are accessible through the Oculus and the artistic expression of video mapping. The latter are fundamental not only as a creative act, but also as a tool for understanding the past. Video mapping, for example, can be used on the one hand to understand the history of built architecture, and the other to show projects that were not completed, or to show places that no longer exist and they were destroyed. Here, we are seeing the performance that took place in Florence, where Michelangelo's project were projected onto the finished facade of the church. This performance served to make the general public understand what the facade would have been if completed, but it also made it clear, perhaps, the importance of having left unfinished. In virtual reality experience made with the helmet visor, one is immersed in environments that prompt action and movement. The consequence is that we lose, and some researchers have written, the freedom to look out of field, out of image. Recently, Andrea Pinotti wrote, "The property of a presence, the effect of presentification, of making the environment present to experiencer and the experiencer to the environment, seems to undermine the foundation of a paradigm that has informed the main theories of image since antiquity, evolving and articulating itself in different variants with the contemporary words, the paradigm of representation. Pinotti reminds us that the image is the representation of reality that pre-exists and exists independently to image that depict it. Immersive virtual environments, precisely because of their power of presentness, seem, on the other hand, to openly challenge the assumption of vision. But if the image is mimesis, according to the classical formulation, meaning by mimesis the more or less faithful imitation of reality, then we should talk about unreality for the virtual representation. Not by chance, in physics, the term virtual is opposed to the term real. Video mapping, on the other hand, does not produce a loss of senses. It does not create a simulated world alternative to the real world, however equally complex and compelling. The monuments act as a surface for the image. The images are in front of me. I'm not inside the image. The stabilization could only come from having a profound and untouchable image, that of historical heritage considered as a set of sacred simulacra of the past civilization. A reversible luminous tattoo, sometimes dynamic, the interpretation of video mapping has been even recently in Florence, the subject of controversy and debate, precisely because, although interesting, it alters the perception of the representation of architecture or a monument considered not be touched, not even with the temporary beams of lights. Behind the polemics on the legality of interpretation and on the indiscriminate right to use the image of a tangible architectural heritage, I believe that the interpretation of a mapped projection is certainly useful, even when one decides not to restore, destroy the work or cities, either for ideological reason or to preserve to memory of destruction as well. Starting in the 19th century in France, the young apprentice architect at the École des Beaux-Arts, the pensionnaires, were required to the image in the 4th years of their study, a restitution of the image of a lost monument. Paradoxically, the seductive watercolors of completely intervened environments, more than the ex novo project of the 5th year, made the fortune of many architects. Today, it could be argued that this line of study of history to virtually hypothesized of past world is still relevant. Let's just think how archaeologists use the virtual reality to restore, recreate, and study lost cities and environments. The question we suggest that the way we relate to new technologies of image production and consumption is by no means secondary. We modify images and images modify us. The gigantism of virtual world can create a desert, generating loneliness. I'm not a technophobic apocalyptic, no, I'm a euphoric techno enthusiast. In the 60s, researchers such as Jean Gottman warned of the risk of the gigantism of real megalopolises, oversized cities that were springing up all over the world. Now, the megalopolis is the virtual one formed by the network, by the internet, which has given substance to the global village prophesied by Marshall McLuhan. The virtual megalopolis is inhabited by the society of the new millennium, which are choosing the dematerialized images in system made up of masses of data. Paraphrasing the observers of the time, even now, one might hope that in virtual megalopolis, a digital urbanization of consciousness might advance to define an identity of digital space. However, I believe that we cannot speak of a single identity of a digital space, rather of multiple identities. Adriano Prosperi recalled an idea of an American writer, Saul Bellow, in a speech in 1988. The identity of a human being is the one defined by the story of his life. By extension, Prosperi derived that the identity of a people or a society would be its history. And I, again by extension, could say that the multiple identities of a digital space that interact with the cultural heritage are those with which we try to safeguard as well as narrate real space. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimiliano. A lot of very interesting suggestions, especially to appreciate how much the limits of the database and the informative system are mixed between different applications. Following the format, I know that now we have a lot of suggestions to start with the discussion, but we will complete the presentation first, and then we will have the roundtable. So I will go ahead and introducing the second question that is exactly linked with the hand of the last presentation of Massimiliano, that was going to be the city and the different identities of the digital content. And consists in, can the digital duplicate of a city be configured as a replica of the physical one? Which tool can be useful to build a digital duplicate of an urban space? And how can a digital place be characterized? To build a support tool for the real city, which data can populate virtual space? And to answer this, we have Professor Francesca Picchio, European PhD in architecture and assistant professor at the Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture of the University of Pavia, that since 2016 has been scientific coordinator of many research projects promoted by the DAda-LAB of the same university and the Joint Landscape Survey and 3D Laboratory. And she participated as an official member in Italian research team in national and international research project, including European FP7 people of Marie Curie Action Wooden Architecture, and in the AU Horizon project, always from Marie Curie Action, in the Research and Innovation Staff Exchange, Prometheus. And she has coordinated architectural and urban documentation projects, including Central America, Russian, and Middle East sites, aimed at enhancing the architectural and landscape heritage through the development of virtual fruition system and management of digital databases. So, Francesca, you can share the screen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We hear you very well.
Okay.
And we see your presentation.
Yeah. So now you see my screen.
Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon again. First of all, I want to thank to the moderator of the session, the Resiliart, for this opportunity, and also our colleague, Professor Massimiliano Savorra, for introduce us with his effective synthesis of the topic that we are going to present in these days, in this event. So to the question, I try to answer showing you a concrete example of a research project that it's just ended. And this example doesn't want to be it doesn't want to be just the only answer to the question. It's just a one of the possibility in which the city can, becoming digital, can communicate other contents that try to promote the more conscious urban management and development of the city itself. There are several research regarding the development of tools that for managing urban complexity. So creating a tool that can be a instrument to describe the heterogeneity of the physical element of a city, the change, the historical structure, and all the things that regard the image of the changing of the image of the townscape. It's has always been one of the aim of the representation field and representation disciplines, but it's also an objective of local administration, because structuring of a 3D database is an opportunity to try to protect the identity and the management of the city itself. So the historic center of Bethlehem, for example, is nowadays the result of several transformations that, especially in the last 50 years, have upset the structure of the first nucleus. So it has been subjected to speculation phenomena that change completely the structure of the city. To control this trend and to promote action to safeguard the Palestinian heritage, starting from 2018, 3D Bethlehem project was developed. Here in this slide, you can see all the partners that has been involved in this project. It's co-financed by an Italian agency for the cooperation to the development. And the main goal of this project was the development of an intelligent database from which to monitor the present city and try to start a planning action, more consciousness planning action for the city of tomorrow. The project has been coordinated by the Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture of the University of Pavia. Here you see the team that are from University of Pavia and other Italian university. And lots of professors and researchers participate to several phases of the project. And the project provides for the creation of, first of all, the documentary corpus, which allows to complete and to create a description of the city, trying to explain the morphometric qualities of the structure of the urban city center at the date of the survey. So the creation of a three-dimensional database of such a big and complex structure requires the use of several technologies and methodology. The survey campaign is the base for the database construction, the 3D point cloud and then model. The acquisition phase has been conducted with mobile and terrestrial laser scanner, and the use of this instrument allowed to gain a metrically and reliable 3D database that is configured like this, like the image that you are seeing now of the entire city center. In addition, we also plan several campaign acquisition, photogrammetric campaign acquisition to complete an accessible data that constitute the data that, merging with the previous one, create the final 3D database. So the integration of different acquisition system generates a database that became like a simulacrum of the real city. This database became the basis for the development of the three-dimensional model that try to describe the buildings and all the urban phenomena that characterize the structure of the city. The model has the aim also to become a guideline for the technician of the municipality of Bethlehem, that with this model try to interpretate the urban complexity. The definition of three-dimensional model follows two different macro phases. The first one was related to the macro modeling of the entire city center, which thanks to which the main dimensional information constitute the base for the creation of first the area and then the urban textile. And then the second, a micro modeling, which constitute the definition of all the architectural and technological elements that identify the quality of each buildings and each urban textile. To facilitate this micro modeling phase, it has been created also a abacus of architectural and technological elements. And it's useful in this moment to create the 3D model, but it's also useful in the future for the update of the model by the local administration. So all this information constitute the total of the 3D model of the historical city center of Bethlehem. Here we have a short video in which we can see the passage from the transformation from the 3D point cloud obtained by the acquisition by laser scanner, mobile and terrestrial laser scanner, and the acquisition with the photogrammetric instrument like drone or digital camera from the ground, till the construction of the NURBS 3D model. So this model tries to describe as well as it can the same relationship that we have found during the survey campaign. So thanks to this model, we have a synthesis, a critical synthesis of the entire city center, in which we can read the relationship between the volumes. We can read the main elements that characterize the urban townscape, the urban image of the townscape. And we can start from this model to plan action for the development of the action of urban planning. Another objective of this project is the structuring of an information system that has to be integrated with the previous three-dimensional model. So this information is constituted by sheets that collect all the data acquired during the survey campaign made during the survey, the several missions that we did in these 3 years, and they are divided into architectural and technological campaign. These are examples of buildings and building unit and the front census, in which you can understand all the information about the technological and architectural at the state of conservation of each building. And here, for example, we can also see that we have a lot of problems related to the management of the roof of the buildings. And we try to describe and to organize the sheets that can be useful for the management of these elements on the roof, because they can also be dangerous for the safe of the building itself. So this information are all within the collected within the 3D model and became questionable for all the pre-established parameters that we organize in the sheets. So building fronts, units, and public space. Here, another small video in which you can understand how we manage the different urban textile. So we divide all the complexity of the urban space in several areas and then in several urban textile. And all these elements are queryable thanks to the division in building units and fronts. Here also a small video that describes the functioning, the work of the GIS platform 3D system. So this project aims to, above all, to build the dialogue between the university and the people, the Palestinian community and the local administration community. And it's the will, it's try to transfer to this community the importance of the documentation activity to try to stimulate and to develop action that can improve the quality of the urban life in the city of Bethlehem. There are, during the project, there are organized also several training in which the Bethlehem experience demonstrate how this community wants to improve and to work with us with this in this kind of topic, and to try to answer to the question, this experience want to demonstrate how the urban documentation is now aimed at the development of a true digital duplicate of the city, which contain more than the real city detailed information on each building, organized within a specific information system. So to do this system like an organism that try to keep it alive and to stay, to continue to maintain in the same function, of course, we need that this technician, this operator, try to update the information and we hope that tomorrow the real city will follow in parallel the the transformation that is planning on the 3D digital clone. So thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Of course, in all the presentation, we see experience conducting in the laboratory. I want to mention also in the presentation of Massimiliano, there was experience of research developed by Francesca Galasso, and here we have seen a huge work of a lot of people and research. Thank you so much. We go ahead and with the third question, that is, how does the digital visual space acquire a physical dimension, and how can it inhabit a real space? What data management and processing procedure are necessary to assign shape to the digital asset? To answer this question, we have Han-Zoon Fu, research fellow at the University of Pavia that graduated in building engineering and architecture with a thesis entitled Parametric Modeling Process for the Management and Development of the Archaeological Museum of the Central University of Pavia. And since 2017, he has participated in national and international research activities, seminars, and workshops, depending the issue on developing parametric models, protocols, and 3D printing based on scan-to-beam process for the documentation and representation of sites of historical and monumental interest. Currently, he is a PhD student, and his research deals with the modeling system and the relationship between digital models and the real 3D printed models, with the definition of HB modeling protocols for the representation, virtualization, and use of built heritage. Han-Zoon, I see you. Good afternoon.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes. Okay. So hello everyone. I'm Anjun Fu, and
You should share your screen first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Start with the presentation. So perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So again, hello everyone. I'm Anjun Fu, and my research activities concern the management of database. I'm into 3D printing and enhancement of cultural heritage. So to answer the main question, the physical model produced in scale is, of course, one of the most effective means of representation to understand the space morphologies and composition of the historical heritage. So in the past, even the great masters, before creating the building, use the model to study the composition of forms and spaces, such as the wooden model made by Sangallo, or the case closest to us, the model of Cathedral of Pavia made by Fgazza. They took several years to make the model. Also, the churches were not really made exactly like the model, but it leaves us a precious memory of how they were designed. Today, physical models are easier to make thanks to fast prototyping technologies, or called also 3D printing, which allow you to convert which digitally designed or reconstructed into physical reality. There are various technologies related to 3D printing, including SLS, multi-jet fusion, fused deposition modeling, and so on. They are differ from each other for the material used and for the materials solidification technique. But in principle, it's always adding the material layer by layer, so more or less the same. So I mainly deal with the reverse modeling process. In particular, the scan-to-bin and the scan-to-mesh process, starting from the digital survey through various post-production process. We arrive to the 3D-dimensional model. That's a container of information that can be used both as an information system and as an expressive and narrative means of architecture for multiple dissemination and enhancement purposes. So, discussing about 3D printing, based on the level of detail and the representative scale to be obtained in the prototyping process, the survey methodology is planned in relation to the type of source data. I mean, the data to be used as a starting point. Were defined segmentation and optimization methodologies of the models carried out in the post-production process. The goal is to develop a solid printable model called all-free manifold model, whose characteristics are directly representative of the printing qualities. These are some examples of experiments from the urban scale, so the historical center of Verona, which is a starting model that extrapolated from Google Maps to 1:1 scale of some archaeological finds. So, taking the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem as a case study, in this project, two models were being made. And either one on urban scale, which includes the historical center of Bethlehem, the small area around the church. And the second one is much more complex in architectural scale, which includes the interior and the exterior part of the Nativity Church. So for the urban scale model, we started from the drone photogrammetry data processed semi-automatically by the software. We obtain a raw mesh model and using the software mesh mixer to cleaning and the cleaning and the arrangement operation are applied to obtain a printable manifold model. So for the architectural scale model, instead, it's much more complex to manage both for the initial data and for the complex structure morphology. For this reason, we started to plan the subdivision of the complex into single portion, also related to the maximum volume supported by the 3D printer. Once the scale and the portion have been chosen, we start with the data processing procedure. First of all, cleaning the point cloud with the software 3D reshaper and generating the mesh model with the MeshLab. Once the mesh is obtained, it's switched to the mesh mixer for cleaning and adjustment procedure. And finally, the model is divided into a smaller portion to facilitate the printing process. And the printing code called G-code are generated for each single pieces. And in this phase, the printing time and the quantity of material to be consumed are also calculated. So being a project still under development, the pieces are not yet glued. I'm working on, and it's still a long job to carry out. On the right, we see the model of the area around the nativity that we talked before about. Okay. So another case study that I would like to talk about is the tile of San Giorgio, which is located on the facade of the church San Michele in Pavia. This is a particular case where we have experimented with digital reconstruction. So digitally bringing the cultural heritage back to a previous state of deterioration. Obviously consulting images and historical documents. So starting from the survey on site, the model of the tile is produced in its current state. Then through digital sculpture software such as ZBrush, volume are added in order to reconstruct the tile, bring it back to an image neglected by time. And through 3D printing, many 1 to 5 scale tiles are produced. So you can take it in hand, touch it, and understand how it was once in the tile. Even for blind or visually impaired people. So, and therefore, with fast prototyping technology, we are able to transform what is virtual into reality, and the miniature model, as well as allowing a good cognitive reading of architecture, also allows a different point of view from the usual man in front of architecture. Oh. Thank you.
So thank you, Hanzu. This digital time machine that consider the rebuilding of the damage that have affected the tiles of the San Michele is very interesting, and express one of the many possibilities also concerning the possibility of managing the all the different type of friction of the facade. We will talk probably later about it. So going ahead, the fourth question is: in the policies for enhancing public space and developing brands and model of cultural communication, can digital practices create space for memory collection that help to qualify science and models? And to answer at this question, we have Dr. Anna Dell'Amico. She's currently a research fellow at the Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture at the University of Pavia, and deals with the H-beam parametric modeling system for historical architecture and urban space. She's PhD in architecture, and since 2015, she's actively collaborated with the DAda-LAB on issues related to the management of database dealing with parametric modeling system and detection system using mobile technology. She's early stage researcher at the European team in the European project Prometheus. And Anna?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
For you in the screen.
I share the screen. Thank you for this invitation to have organized this this day. So I think you can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, I will try to the question by presenting to you today a project that is the Verona Città Murata research project that is regarding the documentation of the Verona magistral walls. This project was born in 2015 thanks to the collaboration between the municipality of Verona and the DAda-LAB laboratory at the Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture, University of Pavia, and see the participation and the collaboration of professors, scholars, researchers, PhDs, and industry researchers. All of these figures are united to develop strategies for enhancement of the Veronese defensive system that is a UNESCO heritage since the 2000. And this heritage consists of a vast repertoire of 45 elements capable to define a broad typological catalog of military architecture that finds its foundation from the Roman foundation and developed under the Austrian Empire. A historical environment, summarized many key aspects related to the concept of cultural heritage. In particular, an heritage is characterized by a transformative nature, so it directly links with the past and implements evolutionary, cultural, and social process. No artifacts autonomously became heritage. While some past places are remembered, valued, and managed as a heritage, others are demolished or remain consciously or are consciously hidden, forgotten, and not valued. And in this sense, heritage associated with the systems of parks and historical urban fabrics summarize a concept of cultural heritage. In particular, needs to be evaluated and interpreted according to a strategic logic to build a new vision of the system at a local scale of the project and start to the enhancement process of memory and collective identity, defining a specific actions to create strategic plans for the enhancement and of the entire 45 systems. The action you can see in these schemes are not independent one from another, but are built to ensure documentation actions that started with the digital action and surveys and ended with the development of workshops, seminars, and exhibitions path in order to open the knowledge and the heritage for all the public and Veronese citizen and the public in general. The whole system in the project is concepting as an open system, and the project aims to open the public to the public the space of the entire fortification, creating some path of knowledge by underline the uniqueness of this system. You can see on the map that the system is overall continuous and is characterized by the continuous presence of the urban park and walls along the entire routes, and the systems consisting of walkways, bastions, tunnels, lengths, specific intent of use, making the heritage subject of the phenomenon of the deterioration, neglect, and improper use by the Veronese community. So knowledge, technique, and art are keywords for implementing digital storytelling to build a collective memory of the cultural and landscape heritage. So narrative planning desired by funded the Russian process must create a shared construction context to safeguard heritage, guarantee the continuity of knowledge, and develop new cultural values, lending to the new narrative landscapes. The project aims to redefine the image of Verona wall systems to prevent this phenomenon from persisting over time. Both systems, the 45 one and the naturalistic one by the Park of the Walls, must be rediscovered by enlightening and using tools in order to documenting the state of the conservation of place to start punctual system of recovery, management, and maintenance over the time. The action of the protection, preservation, and enhancement of this vast historical cultural heritage, such as the one represented by the Veronese magistral walls, constitute a complex and articular area that requires a multidisciplinary approach, as well as the use of flexible tools to management the information and analyze acquired information during the survey phase. The first action is to provide a basic methodological information for the documentation strategies of the space, and secondly, the methodological aspect representing the three-dimensional model of the 45 systems and is treated based on the acquisition by laser scanner systems and digital sensor with an examination of the reading and translation of the digital data of the clouds. So are developed some models that are aimed to develop serious game application for discovering the wall systems. And the the survey activities are also a good moment in which are organized ugly and formative workshop open to researchers, PhD students and scholars, and it represents a fundamental opportunity for experience and study the new technology systems, and also to study the architectures and the urban fabrics. And this is a moment that generates also a scientific dissemination and have some outputs such as the elaboration of theses, doctoral theses, scientific papers, and presentation at national and international conference. The space of the walls by the project are using also for design an exhibition path for the intent to open the system to the people. And in this way, we design a brand for the recognition of the project by promoting it thanks to the design of the logo of the project and making a common way to draw and to explain the information about Verona. In addition of the graphic line, were projected also the structures were designed for communicate well the places and the various installation. The structure are made in iron with these modular systems that are projecting for the for don't make a filter by the people and the places, so they could allow the vision and don't make such as an invasive structure. They are also versatile and designed to move according to the needs to be installed in different areas of the project. As you can see in the images, are made 3 temporary and 2 permanent exhibitions nowadays, and one of these will be organized in next 11 March. So all of you are invited to come in Verona and see the new exhibition in Castel Montorio. And all the events are designed on the basis of these graphic lines of the project and try to be recognizable in over the years. But it is necessary also work at different scale to achieve the objectives that make a model, a support of the tools for the development of virtual tourism of the city. So also we create some multimedia projection of the project by 3D printing and by creating some models that we make available on the website, and also we prevent the dissemination by using social networks such as YouTube. You can find by searching Verona Città Murata, the YouTube channel of the project, where published the videos of the main activity of the project. And finally, we also create a digital system on the website that is a collection of all activities of the project, and where people could discover all the 45 systems by clicking on the map and discover the different model by navigating it using the digital tools that we insert in the different catalog systems. And this is all the way to that we use to make this system open and useful to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So going ahead, last but not least, so we have the last question. Is in the digital world, cultural and space can assume different characteristics and forms. How can science and language make explicit the role of cultural root within the dimension of territory? How can cross-bordering languages be translated into the digital sphere to manage the development of cultural identities? And to answer this question, we have the Dr. Raffaella De Marco, PhD engineer and architect, and research fellow DICAR in the University of Pavia. She collaborating at the DAda-LAB, and her research deals with the development of database and reality-based model on cultural and endangered heritage for conservation, valorization, and management protocols following international policy requirements. Her research activity focuses on the definition 3D digital datasets, structural and urban models, and the elaboration of informative management system. And she is an early stage researcher in the Prometheus European project. So, Raffaella, welcome.
Thank you very much. Hope you can hear me.
We can hear you and we see your screen.
Okay. Okay, great. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the colleagues for their previous answers. It's amazing to answer to these last questions exactly at the end of the presentation, just because it promotes, it shows us a different scales of facing the problem of digital documentation for heritage. Because talking about the digitization of heritage at the territorial scale, we just have to focus on two characters that belong to exactly to the scale of territory linked to culture, that can be organized as diffusivity and accessibility to cultural heritage. I will try to make some proposal on how to face with these two characters using the materials and the photographs of the project Prometheus that we will see in the next slides. But just to introduce the topic on these two aspects that I try to put on the highlights for the scale of the territory and the culture, we talk about diffusivity, about heritage, always connecting the two different aspects of tangible and intangible characters. But every time we have to consider how these two characters are strictly linked on the topic of communities. Both the tangible shapes that govern architecture and the intangible aspects that come from legends, histories, traditions, and artcrafts from a community are some of the main aspects that are perceived as constant in the territory, even if the same territory is something that is continuously undergoing dynamic changes and developments, in particular in the last years. And the other aspects regards exactly the accessibility that can be or not be maintained in the territory following the infrastructural aspects, but also the environmental one, or the changes that people are organizing in the management of heritage and different sites. So when we talk about accessibility at the territorial scale, the topic of widespread heritage is something that strictly connects how communities and both tourists and visitors can perceive the culture that undergoes the topic of a cultural basis or a geographical area. And this exactly brings us to the topic of how cultural landscape can be perceived and transformed in the digital way. For sure, it is not just a topic of digitize the physical world and reproduce it as it is, but it's a more sensitive process of trying to understand those symbols and scenes that are mostly concerned to the community culture and to the culture of the place, and to find those symbols, those languages that are mainly adaptable to communicate these aspects, not only to translate them from the local community, but also for an international and global wide community. And in this way, when we talk about cultural landscapes and culture at the scale of the territory, it is essential to talk about a cultural mediation that can take place between the shapes of the territories and also its contents towards the dynamic panorama of transformation in infrastructures, different managements of territory that can come in the different areas. It's exactly what we can focalize under the name of cultural heritage growth. It's like something new that belongs to the last 10, 15 years under the scenes of the digital process from the European experimentations. But it's something that exactly represents not just the physical topic, but the mental connection between the real landscapes and the possible forms of culture that can be perceived in this landscape. Everything connected exactly to the topic of representation. So how the digital practice can face with these territorial scales of description of culture. In this way, with this presentation, I try to answer under a possible solution of adopting information archives and reference geometrical containers exactly to create, not only in the physical world, but just in the digital one, to recreate that sort of connection that normally are perceived between culture and territory in real. In this way, the proposed presentation about the project Prometheus can try to recover exactly this topic, not just only about the cultural topics, the cultural aims that it conceives, but starting exactly from the partnership that composed this project, coordinated by University of Pavia and supported by the partnership of University of Valencia, National Research Polytechnic University, and also two enterprises, SISMAS and BIME, that exactly recover different ways of intending the digital process, from the documentation aspect, from the construction analysis, from the planning purpose regarding the three universities, and from the society's point of view about how to manage real actions of restoration and the BIM process of communication of formats and products from the professional point of view. So the project that is exactly like in the second year of development, considering the COVID stop, born from the preliminary understanding of how local shapes and values on specific characters and attributes of heritage can be organized, understood, shaped, and proposed in a digital way, also linked to parameters, exactly to try to find descriptions of scenes and information that links each scene to the topic of the cultural route, and from the specific route to a wider perspective of international routes that can come in Europe and also worldwide. It's not a process where we have already the solution on how to apply and solve these kind of issues. It's something that has to be built step by step, and exactly the construction process and the solving process for this project starts exactly from the exchanging of cultural and technical perspective between the partners and their specific backgrounds. So something that starts from the founding team of the project, and that we hope will bring to new researchers figures that will be able to take the guidelines and to convert them in a more wider way. And so the problem starts, the issue of our description of territorial heritage starts from the mapping, from the reconnection of singular identities of sites that are, in this case, developed along a wide route of the Kama River, and that conceive both an individual identity and then the belonging to the wider system of the road. And considering all the experiences and the skills that come from each single partner, the objective is to brought all these aspects in a way of building a global understanding, representation, and policy of these sites. So exactly from the exchange of languages, of skills, of different perspectives on how to consider heritage in connection to the territory that come from the team, it has been pursued also a strategy of applying these different instruments for the digitization of heritage, considering not only their golden standard, but also the possibility to interact, to interchange formats and the quality of data in order to obtain the correct quality of representation useful exactly for the representation of the detail that is linked to heritage, territory, and culture. Here we can see some application that comes from the instrumental and testing of our devices on site, from the architectural scale to the landscape scale. And it exactly appears how it is not just a problem of acquisition of data, but also on how to manage them exactly from the first steps of the post-processing phase to organize a semantic structure of the same data that keeps in mind the different scales of heritage between the territory and the building scale, and then to go in the detail to recover exactly those things, those symbols, particulars, and details that link the architecture to the cultural framework of the area. So the rediscovery of shapes, geometries, original presence of paintings and other memories that belong to the specific culture of the territory has been just the first step to go deeper in trying to apply new opportunities of parameterization and reconstruction in a 3D modeling way of the shapes that characterize the traditional architecture, the traditional scenes and forms linked to the heritage of Upper Kama. Here we can see that the digital process that represents an opportunity of parameterization, but it's common to different applications that go from the industrial way till the architectural one, has to be supported by an understanding of the culture that links the sites to the territory. And only in this way, following this kind of language, it is possible to make it really impactable on this kind of topic of reconstruction and representation of cultural landscape in a digital way. Then the use of these shapes can be very open to different applications that go from the understanding of historical processes to possibilities of future restoration and reconstruction, intervention of these sites, just to preserve their physical presence also for the local community. And then from the scale of the detail back to the scale of the territory, so the reconnection of all these shapes and information to the general databases that can be organized on the scale of the city. And exactly in this representation, we don't have to forget that on the basis of all these entities, there is always a reconnection to the single information that comes from the detailed scale of buildings, accessibility, diffusivity, and other aspects that we have introduced on the topic of widespread heritage. What is the end? I mean, we still don't know. We are trying to answer as a big team on this topic, but for sure we have to imagine that our process till now has brought from the digital documentation of the sites to their proposal of a digital geometry and the structuring of digital attributes. And in this way, we can imagine that in the next year, the experimentation will regard forms of transforming these products in instruments of communication, a communication that exactly recovers the scale of territory and culture, trying to imagine how not only a community, but also a visitor, a tourist, can organize its path of understanding and learning from the scene and from the content that we will make available. So it's something that I hope will be under the lights of the entire team in order to try to experiment better other and multiple opportunities of communications of this heritage between culture and territory. And well, I think that my time is finished, but for anyone that can be interested, I leave also the links to the project websites and socials. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Raffaella, and thank you to all the speakers of this debate. So now it's the moment of the roundtable. I think that we had a lot of suggestions passing from different scale, different aspect, different research project concerning the relation between database management and valorization of different aspects of cultural heritage. So to start the roundtable and to unfreeze probably the situation, I will suggest Professor Massimiliano Lo Turco, because I see that
maybe the first.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sandro. Thank you very much.
Professor Massimiliano Turco from the Polytechnic of Turin.
Yes. Thank you for the invitation and for this interesting session. I have some comments rather than real questions. So starting from Massimiliano Savorra, that talked about the large amount of picture published in the social network. One open question could be how this important database of information, this large amount of picture, can be used in a useful way. For example, in Polito, we are trying to use some social networks such as Instagram, for example, to track, trying to download the images of Instagram. We are trying to track which rooms in a museum are the most posted. And so this part of the museum is the part that is most loved by the users. But I believe there are several other issues, and this could be a challenge for everybody involved in the digital cultural heritage practice. And after the pictures report, it was very clear the purpose. So this model was made for the management, no? And I was wondering if you have some experience design for citizens and visitors, but later both Anna and Raffaella answered to this question with the description of other beautiful case histories. So this was a closed question, let's say. And after hearing from Fu, after Picchio, it came back to my mind an important essay written by Eugene Ching, that it comes from the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China. And in an essay, he proposed a sort of taxonomy that summarized the types of reproduction that are available in the age of fourth industrial revolution. So he figured out six categories, from physical to physical, from physical to analog, physical to digital, digital to digital, digital to physical, and then digital and physical blended together. And I think that the DAda-LAB group explored all the taxonomy in the detail, because we have here a very large use of interesting link between the real object and the digitized object and the virtualized object, converting into a real 3D replica. So thank you also for this. And I have some other thought, but this, in my opinion, this event is very interesting because we can try to reason about the cultural value of the copy and also to the potentialities of digital tools. And so thank you for this.
Thank you, Massimiliano. I ask Jolanta Zrocinskaya from Krakow University, so professor.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'm really delightful to listen to you, and I'm proud of you. You are doing very good job and very interesting one. In the moment, I would like to invite all the people who to the 10th conference Reuser, which will be organizing in October, I think. It will be really interesting to spread your researches and to present it much more internationally. So that was my first proposal. But coming to the facts, truly speaking, I'm really interested in presentation of the heritage, how the value of the heritage can be presented to the people, because it's very important, especially that nowadays the protection of the monument is halfly given to the people. If the people would not like to present or preserve any historical object, there will be no money and no will, and even somebody will get a fire. Yes, although we are better and better in monument protection, still more and more monuments are abandoned and in a bad shape. So that's a very general question and very important, how to present the value and to convince the people, normal people, not scientific workers, not conservators, but the people to get their agreement. So I think that the job you try to do is very convincing and can help all this presentation of the value. But still my two questions, general question. First of all, did you think about, let's say, making researchers in Bethlehem, for example? Did you try to create a sort of digital vocabulary for typical windows, typical doors, typical, let's say, I don't know, shape of the or Cornish or architectural view from the building from certain period? Did you try to create something like that? Because it might be also very helpful for comparison. Yes, this type of architecture with another, to have such a vocabulary or dictionary. Yes, that's my first question. The second one, do you try to, is your model, which you have been created for Bethlehem, but as well for Russia, I think, or Ukraine? It was the part of researchers. Prometheus was devoted to Ukraine, yes, or to Russia? Never mind. Did you Russia? Okay. Did you make some sort of let's say universal model? Is the way that your method you choose, it's really devoted to this special kind of architecture, or does it can be as a universal model?
Okay, thank you. First, I would say something, because to match the preliminary question of Massimiliano with yours concerning Bethlehem, we will we have won recently a project that will give us the opportunity to continue to work in the historic center of Bethlehem, and the second step for the next 3 years will concern the exploitation of the result and the valorization of the result. We will build a museum and all that instrument that are born with a management point of view will be transformed and translate in something else to talk at the people, and so we try to use tools that are more for professionals, to transform them to a large public. This is the first point. To do that, and go in the specific aspect of the census of the architectural element, to build the specific 3D model, we create an inventory of 3D elements that are useful for manage the 3D model itself. So the people of the municipality that will manage the transformation of the city and the transformation of the 3D model at the same time will have already at disposition a big catalog of 3D elements, architectural elements that they use, and they can upload new one in case there's something new arriving in the historic center. And then concerning the main general 3D model for all, this is a sort of utopia for what I read, and this is very, very in line with our main goal. I mean, we try to define a methodology consisting something very, very linear, very simple, and then we try to apply the same methodology, a different case study, understand the differences and exactly the difference that we could achieve from the methodology itself and from the necessary to describe the imperfection in the large sense, not in the sense of the simple 3D model, but in the sense that anytime we want to describe something, we want to describe what except from the normality in these things. So is the imperfection what we look for in the architecture, even in restoration, in all the analysis, in everything. So is exactly this attention to the detail, and in a detail that is not just a decorative detail, but it's something that is go out from the normal measure and so on, that stay the paradox and what we look for when we draw or redraw something in the specific. I think that we can make a sort of ping pong between Italian and foreign, considering the number of the people here at this round table. So following now the Italian one, Cettina, are you connected? Yes.
Yes, my video was just switched because of my connection, but I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes. Of Catania, please.
Yes. First of all, many thanks to Sandro for this invitation and to have the possibility to have all these large multi aspects of all the activities of your projects, your laboratory, and your collaborators. And following all the presentation, I would like to ask, as regards the 3D Bethlehem work, it was addressed to the municipality mainly, to create a tool for the to manage the city and to manage the development of the city. So one question is if in the in the extension of the project, if you are considering, maybe the answer is yes, considering the possibility to have a product, to create products which are devoted to the touristic aspect, and considering whilst considering the management of the city, it is very important to point out all the criticalities, for example, on the terraces, or the critical tanks for the water, etc. And how did you manage also the state of conservation of the maybe selected buildings, or there was an attempt to do this, or are you managing to do in the forthcoming project? I didn't finish. Sorry. And the other question is more general, listening at the Verona Città Murata project, since it is more linked to the to let the city refine its identity, a part of its identity. Have you considered, maybe you have already considered the possibility to engage people, citizens, students, because I saw all the activities with the researchers, with the public administration, etc. But for example, with the younger generation, in order to create a community, to build a community, also considering the Faro Convention principles, like an heritage community. And I don't know if I have another questions. Maybe I have other, but I think these are to start our.
Even because I'm starting to forget the first one. If you go.
Sorry, the one was on the touristic exploitation of the results, and the other one on 3D Bethlehem was on the documentation of the state of conservation of buildings.
Okay, so about the touristic aspect, yes, in the following project we have 8 municipalities related to the Joint Service Council for Tourism in the municipality of Bethlehem. So it takes exactly in consideration all that aspect. For the structural and diagnostic analysis, I can also share the answer with other. It was just trying to don't waste time because we don't have so much time. Probably Raffaella could answer better in this structural analysis. Just don't answer always me. So and we can share the answer between us, consider that all of us working more or less all the project independent, but who have presented what. So
yes, well, about the practical restoration that we can imagine for the future, it's a very different answer depending also on the different study case.
Try to fast.
Okay, in particular in Bethlehem, the thing is that for considering the collaboration with the administration, the project has regarded only the exteriors of the building. So it's something that belongs to the documentation on the public space, and we didn't enter in the very private one of the single unit. It's something that can be developed. We can make some preliminary analysis on the exteriors, but for sure we need also to know something better also on the interiors of the units, so we can make preliminary frameworks, preliminary analysis on the entire city, and in case each one will have to be verified, focusing on some specific units to better understand if this analysis can be useful or not. And it's something that the administration can develop and can integrate with the products that are already available for the first project, for sure.
Thank you, Raffaella. Now I will pass the speech to Professor Svetlana Maximova. Svetlana, okay, from Perm National Research Polytechnic University.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in such interesting event. You have done a great job. Thank you. And I would like to ask Francesca. I have a question. Francesca Picchio. What computer resources are needed to store the 3D platform of the city? And how expensive is it to update later?
Okay, thank you for your questions, Svetlana. I try to answer you quickly. And during these 3 years, we have been in contact, in touch with the technician from the office of GIS in the Bethlehem municipality, and we manage all the procedure respect to them, to their platform, to their computer, to their use of their specific skills. So we have understand and we work together with them to combine and to try to gain to an output that can be used easily by them, and that can be also updated with no much costs, with no expensive or too much time. So they during the last mission, we were there to ensure that they are able to manage this product, and they can do all the process to update the model by themselves. So we are also happy about this, because we work together, and we think that it's an output that can be easily managed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And I can also add something, because regarding the question that Cettina did before about the engage of the people, we also have during this event Luigi Bisceglia, that is part of our research team during the previous project, and in the future project Smart Bethlehem, that is a man that tried to maintain the contact between university and the Palestinian people. So we have a very important relationship with the Palestinian, also thanks to the VIS and other community that work them for the cooperation.
I will let speak later. So
thank you. I would like some words about 3D printing. Sandra, do you know that in Perm University? Sounds okay?
Yes.
In Perm University, Classical University, are developing the topic of 3D printing for blind people. Do you know? And it will be interesting to develop this experience maybe later when you come to Perm. We can develop in this topic.
Hopefully soon.
With other university, not only Polytechnic University, with Classical University.
Of course.
it's very interesting experience for us, for our interaction in future.
We will bring with us a Hanzum Fu.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much once more for this interesting material, interesting event. Thank you.
Thank you, Svetlana. So we follow the ping pong and we go to the Italian side. So I left the speech to Elisabetta Maria Vento from the University of Pavia.
Thank you, Sandro, for the kind invitation to this interesting session and moment of confrontation. I think that my my intervention is not going to create just a question, because I think it's more similar to a stream of consciousness, but I'll try to perform a question maybe in the end. So I appreciate very much all the presentation of the 5 panelists, because in each of them I find a lot of interesting points, especially in relation to the transcalar points of view for all the projects presented, because each of them start from a scale and then develop the dissertation in all the different scale of the project. So from the micro scale to the meso scale until the macro scale. So from the architectural scale, from detail scale, as the tile of San Giorgio, presented by Anju Fu, from till the architectural scale, the urban scale of the project of Bethlehem, until the territorial scale in the case of the PERM and the research presented by Raffaella. So in this whole presentation, also they underline different thematics that are quite common in all of them. So the complexity of the project, the complexity of the environment in which they perform their work, the complexity of the digital environment and the complexity of the tool and the elements that they are going to recreate in the digital environment. And then they also underline the power of the identity of all the elements involved in the project, and also the perception of all these elements and the perception of the identity of the element and the environment here. But I think, without the I think that this transcalar point of view, so this transcalar movement from the micro to the mega scale, it is the strength of all the projects and also the strength of the digital space and the digital environment and the digital tool they all use in the project. And I think also it could be a delicate aspect in the project, especially when the tool is going to put in the hands maybe not only of expert people, but also in the hands of the municipality, because they have to be aware about the potentiality of the tool, and also they have also the ability to perform all the analysis and all the visualization that they deserve and they want to show. So I think that this is a real important aspect to underline during the dissertation. So there's no question, but just some points that I want to underline. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisabetta. So I switch in the foreign and I go to Professor Nadia Yeksareva and Vladimir. There. Okay, so both of you from the State Academy of Architecture, please.
Dear colleagues, thanks a lot for your invitation. It's very important for us. We remember our joint experience of research of the heart of Odessa, Palais Royal. It's very good time and very useful for our students, for our postgraduate, for our professors. Thanks a lot for this experience. And we, of course, hope that we can continue maybe later, of course, not now. And we think that we are witnessing the rapid and qualitative growth of your wonderful team. And we agree with Professor Elizabeth Maria Venko opinion, very nice about completeness and very different field. Your work is very important for municipality and for people, of course. And thanks a lot for the very interesting reports of the successful, fruitful works, your comment for the digitalization of heritage and the historical environment. And I repeat that we very hope that we will meet in Odessa. Welcome everybody, and we continue our work with pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Vladimir. We always remember at the time in Odessa with very pleasure and so on. Matteo Bigongiari.
Here I am. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so just a short consideration. First of all, thank you. It was very interesting for me seeing how this many project comes to a sort of an end. So it was really, really beautiful to see it. A consideration starting from the first speak of Massimiliano Savorra, who told us the importance of the image for our society, which I suppose, seeing what is happening in the firmas, so that it's coming to a 3D image, so a 3D universe and so on. So we are architects, we work with image, we create image and the image is really, really important to give significance to the thing that we are transmitting on the internet, on the site and so on. So seeing all those kind of projects, it comes to me, to my idea, the great importance of the architect in giving meaning to the 3D copy, 3D image of all this kind of project, all this kind of models that we create. So in the second, third, and so on speaking, we can see the difference in the using these models and giving importance, giving meaning, and at the urban scale, architectural scale, and digital and detailed scale. So it was really, really interesting for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Bigongiari. I had the microphone turned off. Now the two guys from Lublin, Karol and Piotr. Hi, guys. Turn on the microphone.
Yes, we have a problem.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. It was very interesting, and every problem that you showed us, it's connected with our problems, our university, and we think about this to put every this presentation, every these problems, to put to one bag, to create one big problem, especially for today when we have a pandemic time. We're thinking about using these every elements to create maybe application to show everyone, to create application to virtual tourism, for example, when we have every information to information about the heritage, about the point cloud, about the scanner laser, about the 3D models, and we think.
Yes, but this is one part of the whole project, because also we think that we can use whole materials, whole information, we can use it like a tool for scientists, for architects, for conservators, etc. And basically, we want to create a tool for education and for science. We think about, for example, modeling, scanning, and prepare information and database for one building or one, I don't know, maybe small city or village with historical shape and historical plan, and then we can connect it with scientist articles and some papers about with information about whole historical value and heritage value of this element, these zones. And then it will be a tool for, as I told, for architects, for scientists, for also tourists, for students, conservations, etc. You showed us a lot of good stuff today, and we can think about how to connect all this element. And also, Piotrek is still in connection with in contact with Sandro. You know this element of this tool. Yes, also this tool about this application for tourists based on point cloud of fortification in Kłodzko in Poland, and we think that it will be first step for next move.
Yes, very interesting presentation and a lot of good work from DAda-LAB.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. So for closing this ping pong before the last speech, there is the perfect solution between Italian and foreign, that is Gigi Bisceglie from Bethlehem. So you could choose to be Italian and foreign at the same time.
Sandro, thank you very much for the invitation and for the interesting presentations. Actually, in the past 4 years, I had the pleasure to work closely with you and all the friends of DAda-LAB. I am still an Italian, of course, based in Palestine, based in Bethlehem. To us, 3D Bethlehem project means a lot. And I discovered it even during the pandemics, because we were not able to have you here. And also focusing on something that Professor Zavora said at the beginning, the importance of immaterial communication. I realized how much it will be important to go back to promote Bethlehem and Palestine as an amazing touristic place where to come. So the 3D database for sure will be very useful also to promote tourism, but it will be very useful, as Francesca was saying, also to protect the identity and the management, not only of the city, but even of the population. Knowing about the history of the architectural heritage of Bethlehem will be crucial to continue telling the amazing story and the history of this city and eventually of this country. So starting from a very complex 3D database, I'm sure that in the next 3-4 years, we will find so many applications. And to be frank, I am even excited to see the 3D model of Nativity Church or the Nativity Basilica. I'm pretty sure that you're working on it. So, you know, giving the possibility and the opportunity to have a replica, I mean, a model, it will be great for everybody all around the world, but it will be also great to start having virtual visits of the city and of the Nativity Church to convince people to come back to this place. I mean, the pandemics was a big issue all around the world, but consider where we are living, and all the constraints that we have in the region. So we need to promote a different Palestine, a different perception of Bethlehem and all its attractions and institutions. And then I want to highlight something that Francesca mentioned. I work either for Bethlehem University and also for an Italian NGO called VIS. The NGO is based inside the university. And you know what it is great for us is to promote, of course, international cooperation projects, but also to promote applied research, because this is what we need for the development of the country. Then the relationship with DICAR and DAda-LAB is so amazing, effective, and strong that we are trying to convince our administration to open a school of engineering to, to continue doing something together and to have you here eventually to teach. And the last, really, the last words are to the rest of the colleagues and the rest of the network. Thanks to Pavia, we are connecting each other all around the world. It's something amazing, beautiful, and I want to invite all the new friends and colleagues to come visit us at Bethlehem University. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, Gigi. So I just take the opportunity of this moment to focus the fact that together with Professor Massimiliano Savorra, Marco Morandotti, and teams of professors from the University of Pavia, we are designing a new course that is called VREA, a course in virtual reality for architecture and engineering. And this course is under now in a process of building for a new Erasmus Mundus design major program that we won. So all that aspect concerning the digital worlds in architecture, I hope that soon will be under a more direct study and contact inside the course's development and an international network. So that's it. Thank you all. We have finished our Resiliart debate. I want to thank all of you for the participation, the speakers, and each one of you to join us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sandro. Thanks, everybody. Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao. Ciao. A presto.
A presto.
Thank you very much.
Ciao. Ciao a tutti. Bye bye. See you.
Bye bye to everyone.
Buona serata. Ciao,
Bye.
cari.
Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.
Ciao,
you very
grazie.
much.
Sì.
Grande Bigongiari.
Un saluto a tutti.
Ciao, Matte.
Grazie. Ci vediamo presto.
A presto. Ciao ciao.